Hello, I'm Susan Woodcock, and thank you for joining me. I'm going to be sharing my method for sewing zippers and pillows. My husband, Roger Walker, and I own Workroom Tech, a trade school for sewing professionals who want to learn how to make window treatments and soft furnishings as a business. We're located in Tryon, North Carolina, and we have in-person and online classes. We also produce Custom Workroom Conference, a trade show for the workroom industry. The next CWC will be October 2022 in Hampton, Virginia. You can learn details about CWC at customworkroomconference.com. And my custom workroom is Home Deck Gal, and that also is a great resource for learning more about sewing, window treatments, and soft furnishings. In this presentation, I'm going to show you how I insert zippers and pillows most of the time. If you've ever listened to the 30 Minutes with the Workroom Tech podcast, you know that I say quite often that there's at least 3 right ways to do something in the workroom. And that's true for putting zippers and pillows. You might have learned a different way from one instructor or another. And you might use a different method depending on the thickness of the fabrics, how you want the zipper to look on the outside, your sewing machine and the feet that you have, whether you're using a walking foot or not. It's really great to have different options and different methods so that you can choose what's best for the project that you have that day. But this is my go-to method for putting zippers next to welt cord. You can see in the photo on the bottom right, the zipper pull is sort of tucked up underneath a little lip or a little flange of fabric that's covering the zipper. You can tuck that in a little tighter, or you can flip the pull over and tuck that up into the seam to completely hide it. And this is the pillow that I'm going to show in this instruction. The pillow is going to start with the front and back cut. I've added a fusible stabilizer because this was a stretchy linen. It was kind of thin. You can also add lining to pillows. And I'm using a 4.5 nylon coil zipper. I purchased zippers pre-made in lengths that I use most often, like 20, 22, or 24 inches long. You want the zipper to be greater than your pillow cut. I like to have at least an inch extra off each side. And that makes it easier to sew, especially when you're sewing near the zipper pull. You don't want the zipper pull in the way. You want to be able to zip it off out of the way. Then when the pillow is done, you can cut off the excess tape. You can also make your own zippers. And I do that too sometimes by buying zippers on the roll and getting the zipper pulls and putting them on yourself. I'm starting by unzipping the zipper. I'm using 4/32 welt cord. You could also use 5/32 welt cord here. And the zipper is face down, and you see the zipper's plenty long. Face down on the welt cord. I'm putting the teeth up onto, slightly up onto the welt cord, not next to the welt cord. I want the stitching to be next to the welt cord. So those teeth have to come up onto the welt cord. And all of that's going to go under the presser foot. And I'm using a 1/4 inch welt cord foot. So the zipper tape, again, it's up on the teeth or on top of the welt cord. And then I'm going to stitch next to the teeth and next to the welt cord. I'm starting about 1.5 inches from the edge. You don't have to go all the way to the corner. And let the zipper feed into the welt cord foot. And then when you get to the other end, as I mentioned earlier, I've got plenty of zipper. I can pull the zipper, pull away from the corner, and stop about 1.5 inches from the end and backstitch. Now I need to put the back to the front. So I'm going to close the zipper and get the back piece that's been prepared. Now this fabric is a medallion fabric. It's a mirror image. So I cut the front and back to match. That means the sides, the top, and the bottom are going to match on this pillow. I'm going to find the center mark. So I have each side marked in the center and the center mark for the bottom. You can make notches, you can use pens, you can make little pencil marks like that. And I'm going to pin the zipper tape to the pillow back, starting in the center, and then pinning the corner, and then pinning in between. You want the corners and the centers to line up when you make square pillows. The pins are put in, pinning from right to left, parallel with the zipper, on the side of the zipper tape, not on the side of the pillow fabric. By starting in the center and cutting to match, my pattern match should work out pretty good. So I'm going to check that. Looks good. And now I can unzip and sew to the back, the zipper to the back. Same process, starting about 1.5 inches from the end, backstitch. And so you don't have to try to get super tight against the zipper teeth. Just let that ride in the groove of the welt cord foot. Now the zipper sewn to the front and the back of the pillow. There's always so many little strings you need to clip off. Now I can zip it closed. Make sure the zipper works, that I didn't get caught up in the seam. And also to check the pattern match. Now would be the time to fix that, but it looks good. So now I need to put the front to the back and sew all 4 sides together. So flip that back around, front to back. And the same process. I'm looking for the center marks, starting at the center on each side. So this is the top of the pillow, and that's the really important part, because that's what shows the most, is the very top of the pillow. So I'm making sure that pattern is lined up. Starting in the center. So I have the pillow front down. So I'm working so I can see how the back is lining up. Now the priority here is to make sure the pattern matches. If you were using a solid fabric, you would just pin them together and sew with a 1/2 inch seam allowance. But because I'm pattern matching, I might have to shift a little bit. So the seam allowance might not be exactly 1/2 inch seam allowance that I allowed. But I'm going with the pattern here. That was the top. Now I'm going to the side, finding the center mark, folding over to get the pattern match. So if this were a solid fabric or a fabric, a print fabric where you were not pattern matching, you would pin the centers, pin the corners. And then when you're sewing, you want to make sure that it doesn't move and ride up when you get to a pin. And then here's the other side, and that's needs to be lined up quite a bit. So I'm going to move that over to get the pattern match and then pin. One reason I like this method is because I keep the welt cord foot on from the beginning to almost the end. The very last step, I'll change the foot, but this allows me to have the welt cord foot on to make the welt cord, apply the welt cord, sew the zipper, sew the front to the back. So if I'm making multiple pillows, I'll do those steps all the way through and then change the foot and do the last step. I'm leaving a hole there. I'm pulling the zipper closed, but I need to be able to turn it right sides out. So make sure you leave a hand size space there. And I'm going to sew from the bottom and around. So I'm going to put a pin there just because I want to make sure that zipper tape doesn't go back inside. You want to make sure the zipper tape stays outside. And I'm going to be sewing to the inside of the previous stitch line. You could use a smaller size welt cord foot, or you can use the same welt cord foot, just keeping an eye on it. And right here at the bottom, you want to stitch between the zipper teeth and the welt cord. So I'm starting about 2 inches back and sewing between. There's a sweet spot there. And sometimes I'll take my fingernail and sort of find that spot between the welt cord and the zipper teeth. As I'm sewing around the pillow, the top fabric was growing a little bit. So you can see I put a little tension on it between the pins because I want the corners to end up even. Get to a corner with your needle down, then you can pivot. This pillow was cut with tapered corners. And I'm sewing from pin to pin. If you do find that the top fabric is feeding differently than the bottom fabric against the feed dogs, you might need to flip the pillow over and sew from the other side. That will compensate for it. So as I'm working around, I'm looking, I'm checking, I'm making sure that the lip of the welt cord is not folded under. I'm sewing from pin to pin, working in the fabric on the top to the next pin. So sometimes I'm pushing, sometimes I'm giving a little tension as I'm sewing, and I'm back around to the other corner, making sure the zipper tape and teeth are out of the way. Coming to that corner with the needle down, I can pivot around and then sew over beyond where the zipper was sewn on so that it covers it up, and you're going to stitch between the welt cord and the zipper teeth. That's can be tricky, and you may need to resew it and take it out, and that's okay. It's just a few stitches there. It gets easier with practice. Now I can turn it right sides out and see how it looks. Checking the corners and where the zipper was sewn. There's some threads I need to trim. But the goal is to make sure that the teeth are behind the stitching and not on top of the stitching. For this pillow, I don't need to clip off anything from the corners. The seam allowance on the corners actually fills in the corners. For some heavy fabrics, you may want to clip off the corners to turn right sides out and to push out those corners. You want to make sure that you don't see any stitching, that you sewed close enough to your welt cord. And you can see there on that end how the stitch line was over the zipper teeth. And then to the other side, and make sure that the stitching is over the teeth there. That's how it should look. And now the last step, we're almost done. And this is where I change the foot. I'm using a skinny presser foot. That's a 2-toe presser foot with really skinny toes. It's the perfect size to sew next to the zipper. I'm folding the zipper under to create a small lip or a little bit of a flange above the zipper teeth. You don't want the zipper teeth to show. And remember that it's going to be stuffed, and that will put the zipper under tension. So you have to do this top stitching to keep the zipper in place. So you want a small reveal of the face fabric coming up above the zipper here. And I'll just put a few pins in if you want to. If you do put pins, make sure you're pinning with the pinning right to left as I'm holding it here, so that it'll be oriented in the right direction for sewing and easy to remove. Make sure that you have a matching thread. The stitching is going to show, so you're going to make sure that you have a thread that matches on the back. And then get as far as you can to the opening at the end, backstitch, and then just let the presser foot guide along that zipper. It's the perfect distance away from the zipper. You don't want to be sewing too close to the teeth. And then backstitch at the opposite end. So if I'm making multiple pillows, I'll sew them all to this point, then change the foot, put the color thread on I need, and then do all this top stitching at the same time. And that's a more efficient use of time than changing it for each pillow. And now the test to see how it looks. So there's the top stitching. And the pattern match looks good. And there's a zipper pull. And when you stuff the pillow, make sure that you press all the seam allowances, reach inside, press all the seam allowances down in the same direction. And you can take the zipper pull and tuck that into the seam if you wish. I hope you found this really short pillow zipper tutorial helpful. And thank you for viewing. A handout is available on the Workroom Tech blog if you'd like to have a printed copy. You can go to workroomtech.com and look on the blog. If you don't see the blog post, just put zippers in the search box. And at workroomtech.com, you can learn more about our online and in-person classes. If you have any questions, let me know. My email is susan@workroomtech.com. Thank you.